Hey guys, welcome back to yet another video. I'm Sandeep and you're watching RevAtlas. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the first impressions of the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 2. So this is their latest foldable and their flagship product currently in 2020. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about my brief impressions after spending 24 hours with this smartphone. Now before we get this started, please do make sure to hit the subscribe button and also turn on notifications for more videos like this. Now let's begin the video. So let me start by talking about the basic specifications. I just want to get that out of the way before talking about my experience so far. So at the front, what you get is a 6.23-inch display. So this is a 60 Hz panel. It's a Super AMOLED panel as well. And on the inside, you get a massive 7.6-inch screen. This has a 120 Hz refresh rate, and this is also Super AMOLED. The outer screen is very tall, 25:9 aspect ratio, while the inner one is almost a 1:9, almost a square type thing. It's slightly taller than it is wider. Apart from that, you get three cameras at the back, which comprise of a 12 megapixel primary camera, a secondary 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and lastly a 12 megapixel telephoto camera as well. Internally, this is powered by the Snapdragon 865 Plus, and generally Samsung phones in India come with the Exynos chipset, but considering that this is a very limited production in the larger scheme of things, they can't really build a separate SKU which actually comes with an Exynos chipset, and that actually works in our favor considering that Exynos chipsets, at least in the past few generations, have known to be more battery hungry, not as good in terms of performance, and overall is the less desirable option. And in India, we don't get to choose between an Exynos or Snapdragon variant, and we are often left high and dry because we get just the Exynos variant while having to actually pay more than most other markets as well. So in this, you get the 865 Plus, 12 gigs of RAM and 256 GB of storage. And while the 12 gigs of RAM is more than sufficient, the 256 gigs of storage seems a bit less considering that the first generation of the Fold actually came with 512 GB out of the box. Now, moving on to the design, which I feel is definitely the highlight of it, and this is a bit different from the first generation Fold as well as the Z Flip. So while I would say that the first generation Z Fold or the Galaxy Fold was more of a tablet that could become concise and you had a window to the smartphone itself, it was a very small screen, and that meant that you couldn't really use it for most of the functions. I mean, you could use it as a viewfinder, maybe as a dial pad or quick reply to messages, but you could not really use it for 100% or close to 100% of your activities, and that meant you had to open your phone more often than not to access stuff. But with this, although it is a very tall aspect ratio, it can actually be used exclusively, I would say 100% of the time, without any limitations to what you're doing. Of course, it is very, very wide, and as a result of that, if you're watching videos, for example, you will have severe letterboxing on both sides, but at the end of the day, it's still usable and you're not compromising on any functionality. And you can even do typing, especially if you're using gesture input. It's working pretty well. Now, the display, I expected to have an issue because the outer display only goes to 60 Hz and the interior one goes to 120 Hz, but honestly, it's not that big a deal considering that even if both were 120 Hz, the main issue that I would find is the difference in sizes, right? So whenever I need to use the larger screen, so if I'm sitting in bed or browsing or maybe watching videos, I typically shift to this. That's what I've done for the past day or so. But whenever I'm using just messaging and those kind of things, I kind of like the compact factor that this has. Phones are becoming larger and larger in size. It's also very difficult to hold because of the increasing width of the smartphones. But in this particular case, it's actually very easy to hold. Yes, it is a bit chunky, but at the end of the day, the very slim profile of it makes it easy to handle, and you can type quite fast, and it is quite heavy. That is something that you will take some time to get used to. When I took it out of the box first, I felt that it was a bit heavy, but considering what it packs on the inside, that is so much glass, so much metal, the hinge itself has a very heavy feeling to it. It definitely adds to the overall premium feeling of the smartphone, but because of that, it does take some time to get used to. But in a day itself, I feel that it's become I've become a bit habituated to it. In terms of the fingerprint scanner on the side, this is actually their method of ensuring that there's no two separate in-display fingerprint scanners. Not that there was room for it, but this means that you can use the fingerprint scanner for both the outer display and inner display. But I found this to be very finicky. It could be my fault as well because my fingers have a tendency to get wet or sweaty very fast. So more or less I have had very low success rate with this. But then again, there is face unlock, but if you're sitting in the dark, for example, considering that there's no IR detection, it actually isn't all that great. Camera quality, you get two other 10 megapixel sensors as well, one on the front here and one on the inside. I find that to be decent overall. It's not flagship grade. I mean, it is flagship grade, but then again, if you compare it to the likes of the 11 Pro Max, Pixel 4 XL, or Note 20 Ultra, you will find that it does not have certain things like, say, 8K recording on the Note 20 Ultra. It does not have the as good, what do you say, dynamic range, as good what do you call portrait mode as some of the other phones. But again, it's still acceptable in my opinion. I've come to understand that although the camera is very important for me, I kind of find that almost every camera, because of the way that they have become better with time, almost every camera is now acceptable, and if I need anything more, I can always use my DSLR or any other dedicated camera for the same. In terms of screen viewing experience, like I said, this is amazing for the immersive experience that it provides for videos or even for Instagram or any other social media. It's great for browsing overall, and the text is large and well legible. The crease is definitely visible, but at the end of the day, I find this is better than the Z Flip, considering that the Z Flip essentially had it going along the middle in a horizontal sort of way. So you would be swiping up and down, and there's a high chance that you could run your finger across it. But in this particular case, if you're swiping up and down as well, say I open my Twitter feed, and if I'm going up and down, it actually does not interfere with my browsing. If I'm using it one-handed and swiping up and down, I don't really use it. Or if I use this half again for interacting, I don't really come across this. So it's only in rare instances when you swipe across this way that it becomes a bit of an issue. But again, it's much better than having it horizontally in the middle of your screen, which actually would interfere with your scrolling, for example. And that is the primary benefit I feel of the Z Fold 2, considering that this can be a tablet when you want it, but when you close it, it's still a fully functional phone, unlike the Z Fold 1, which I felt was not a proper phone but more of a tablet, while the Z Flip was a proper phone, but then it did not give you any benefit with the form factor. When you close it, you get a very, very tiny screen, which is useful for just notifications, not even proper reading what you got, just letting you know what apps you got notifications from, but that's about it. So that was a sort of innovation that I felt it was cool to have, but not necessarily made your life any bit easier, right? That way, this makes it ideal, especially for people who are working on the go. Right now, we are all stuck indoors, but I feel that if this was back to a normal day where I would be traveling, covering events, etc., this would be a great thing to have, since I have the smartphone sort of experience here and open it up, and I have a larger experience, so I can consume content, do a lot of work, word processing, etc. on this. And while it cannot obviously truly replace your laptop or desktop, it's still great on the go, and I feel is a good productivity machine. There are two speakers at the top and bottom which are amazing, and of course when you open it up, these sort of become side by side, the left and right channel, and they provide an absolutely immersive experience as well. So that was my first impressions. I'm really impressed by this device. I mean, the first generation Fold, although was technically impressive, practically speaking, it did have a few shortcomings which I just highlighted. But this seems to be something that will practically benefit you apart from just being a technological innovation. And while I do find that the weight is a bit heavier, that's something you can get used to. But the fingerprint scanner, I'm not sure what the issue is with that. I hope that updates will solve it. But other than that, this is one hell of a smartphone. And I also feel that Samsung should have given a case in the box like they did with the Z Fold 1. And even if you're buying the official cases, they only cover the back, which is again weird, because the back, of course, it is glass, but you don't want to still break the display on the front. So that's what you want to protect as well. So hopefully they will come up with better cases. I mean, other brands are doing so. Spigen is coming with cases. You're also getting UAG and other cases as well. But I feel that Samsung should have also bundled protection for the front display. Overall, I am very impressed by this, and stay tuned for a full review. But I just wanted to bring this video out to you guys, and I also want to take a short opinion from you guys. So generally, we were a channel that used to do b-rolls exclusively along with voiceover, and many people like that cinematic sort of style. Then in between we got suggestions saying that we should be coming on camera and we should be a bit more personal in our sort of approach. We tried that, but that didn't work out all that well. But even now we're getting people asking for both styles. So my personal take on this was, how about we do first impressions? First impressions is something that needs to come out fast and does not require much of time. So how about we do first impressions like this video in front of the camera, while we do reviews and other detailed videos in as short and concise manner as possible, while still giving you the cinematic footage and b-roll and stuff. Let me know what you guys think about that. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you again in the next one.